This is the second video on Pearl S. Buck's interesting story, The Enemy. The first video ended when we found that Dr. Sadao and his wife were having a close look at the wounded man, and then they found out that it was a white man. Looking at his face and his beard and everything, they could realize it was a white man. And when Sadao found that the man was wounded, he got interested because wound is something in which he was an expert to deal with. Sadao remembered the wound, page 27 in the middle. Now Sadao remembered the wound, and with his expert fingers he began to search for it. Blood flowed freshly at his touch. On the right side of his lower back, Sadao saw that a gun wound had been reopened. The flesh was blackened with powder. Sometime not many days ago, the man had been shot and had not been tended. It was bad chance that the rock had struck the wound. So, looking at his wound, Sadao could know that the man was shot. He was wounded with pistol many days ago, but he was never taken care of. And again, the rock in the sea have caused some more injury on his body. Oh, now he is bleeding, Hannah whispered again in a solemn voice. The mists screened them now completely, and at this time of day no one came by. The fishermen had gone home, and even the chance beachcombers would have considered the day at an end. What shall we do with the man? What shall we do with this man? Sadao muttered. But his trained hands seemed of their own will to be doing what they could to stanch the fearful bleeding. He packed the wound with the sea moss that strewed the beach. The man moaned with pain in his stupor, but he did not awaken. The best thing that we could do would be to put him back in the sea, said Sadao, answering himself. It was a really very critical situation, very unexpected, unusual situation. Sadao, he was trying to help the man recover, and he was searching where actually the wound was, and to an extent he was successful, and he was asking himself, what shall we do with this man now? While asking what shall we do, he was actually doing things. He was trying to help the man, and the answer that came from his mouth again was that the best thing is to throw him away into sea again, because taking this man to our home and taking care of him will lead us to difficult situations. So his question was put to himself, what should we do with him? The answer automatically came from his mouth that we should throw him into the sea again. Now that the bleeding was stopped for the moment, yes, he was able to stop bleeding also. He took help of the sea moth and he put it there, and somehow bleeding was stopped. Now that the bleeding was stopped for the moment, he stood up and dusted the sand from the hands. After this primary treatment, he dusted the sand from his hand, and yes, undoubtedly that will be best. Hannah also answered to Sadao that yes, that will be the best thing, to throw him away into water again. But she continued to stare down at the motionless man. Although she said yes, the best thing is to throw him into water again, but still she could not help it. She could not stop looking at the wounded man. If we sheltered a white man in our house, we should be arrested. And if we turn him over as a prisoner, he would certainly die, Sadao said. Two situations. One thing is that either we take him to our home and treat him. If we do it, we will be arrested, because we are doing something against the interest of the country. Our country is at war with America, and we are sheltering an American man. We will be arrested. Second thing is, if we hand over the man to our soldiers, to our administration, then they will kill him. The man will be killed. So there is a fight in their mind. Whether to treat him, if we treat him, we will be in difficulty. If we hand over him to the police, the man will be killed. What to do? The kindest thing would be to put him back into the sea. Hannah again tells her husband, the best thing is to put him again into sea. But neither of them moved. They are saying, yes, we have to, the best thing is to put him into sea again. Though they are saying their opinion is the same, but they could not do it. They could not make any movement in that direction. They were staring with a curious repulsion upon the inert figure. They were just looking and curiously looking. They were saying the best thing is to throw him into water again, but they could not act. What is he? Hannah whispered. There is something about him that looks American. What is he? Hannah asked her, what is he? It means from which nation is he? What kind of nationality he has? And there is something about him that looks American, Sadao said. What is it? He took up the battered cap. Battered means the torn cap, the cap worn by the soldier which has got torn. Sadao took the battered cap, and in the cap there was written a sailor. The word a sailor was written, but these letters were getting faded, and somehow he was able to decipher, he was able to understand this much thing, that yes, the word sailor is written there from an American warship. These words in the quotation, these words were written in the cap. He spelled it out. Sadao also spelled the word USNAVY, Navy. The man was a prisoner of war. This man was from US Navy. He was a soldier, and he was a sailor also, and he was fighting with the help of those people, people who fight using ship. They fight using water through sea. They are called Navy, and this man was a sailor in the American Navy. And this information they have collected looking at the fainted letters on the man's cap. He has escaped, Hannah cried softly. Hannah told her husband, this means the man has escaped. He was a prisoner of war. He was captured by our army, and then he escaped. Hannah is telling her husband, he has escaped. Hannah cried softly, and that is why he is wounded. In the back, Sada said, yes, in the back he is wounded. He was trying to escape. He was captured. He was arrested by the Japanese soldiers, and then he was trying to escape, and he was shot, and that's why there is wound on his back. These things they are exploring, they are finding out now. They hesitated, looking at each other. Then Hannah said with resolution, come, are we able to put him back into the sea? They hesitated what to do. Then when they thought that yes, this man was arrested by our own army, and then he tried to escape, and then he was shot by our own army, so we cannot help this man. It will be very risky, it will be dangerous for us to give shelter to him. So they finally, Hannah with resolution, with determination, she told her husband, come, are we able to put him back into the sea? Can we put him back into the sea? If I am able, are you? Sada was asking his wife, okay, if I am able to put him, can you also help me? His wife said, no, but if you can, do it alone. If you can do it all alone, you can do it. I cannot help you. Sadao hesitated again. The strange thing is, he said, that if the man were whole, I could turn him over to the police without difficulty. If the man were whole, it means if the man was quite okay, if there was no wound, if he was not suffering so much, if he was whole, if we did not have any kind of wound or any kind of injury in his body, then I would have handed him over to our police. But the thing is that the man is wounded. If he was not wounded, I would have handed him over to the police. I care nothing for him. He is my enemy. All Americans are my enemy, and he is only a common fellow. You see how foolish his face is. But since he is wounded, this is the question. Since he is wounded, how can I hand over this wounded man? I feel really bad for him. You also cannot throw him back into the sea, Hannah said. Then there is only one thing to do. We must carry him into the house. His wife said, yes, you cannot hand him over to the police. Neither can you throw him into sea water also, because your kindness in the heart doesn't allow this. Then the only thing is to take his body, to take him to our house. But the servants, Sadao said, but what will happen? Our servants are there. They will come to know. If they report it to the police, what will happen? We must simply tell them that we intend to give him to the police, as indeed we must, Sadao. We must think of the children and your position. It would endanger all of us if we did not give this man over as a prisoner of war. Hannah is saying, yes, when the servants will ask why we have taken this foreigner, this enemy to our house, we will just tell our intention is to hand him over to the police. We have taken him to our house with the intention of handing him over to the police. That's it, we will tell, and we will definitely have to do it, his wife is saying, because we have to think about the future of our children, the safety of the life of our children, and also your position. You are a renowned doctor in the Japanese army, and you have sacrificed so much for the country, and you are a great patriot, and being such a man, how can you be a betrayer? How can you betray? How can you cheat your country? So these things we should take into account. That is why we will ultimately have to hand him over to the police. Sadao said, certainly, I would not think of doing anything else. Yes, that is what. I agree. We will have to hand him over to the army. We cannot help him. We cannot give him shelter. Thus agreed, together they lifted the man. He was very light, like a fowl that had been half starved for a long time, until it is only feathers and skeleton. They took him, and he was so light that it is just like a murgi, like a chicken, that as if a chicken has not, a hen or a cock has not got food for many days, it starved, and then only feathers and skeletons are there. It doesn't have any flesh in its body. So light it was. They took him to their home, to their house. So his arms hanging, they carried him up the steps and into the side door of the house. This door opened into a passage, and down the passage they carried the man towards an empty bedroom. It had been the bedroom of Sadao's father, and since his death it had not been used. They laid the man on the deeply matted floor. Everything here had been Japanese to please the old man. This is ironical. He is a Japanese, he is an American, and Japanese people or anything that is Japanese is something that he will not like. As this wounded man was an American, and these couple, they are placing him into a house which has all the decorative things, all the traditionally respectable things. For example, if in an Assamese house you see horai, gamusa, etc. in a house, the same is the case. In their house, carpet, everything was decorated in the Japanese way. And this man is an American, he is an enemy of Japan, and when you place him in such a house, the author is telling that to please this man. How can these things please him? Not to please him. This is just an ironical expression. They laid the man on the deeply matted floor. Everything here had been Japanese to please the old man, who would never in his own home sit on a chair or sleep in a foreign bed. Hana went to the wall cupboards and slid back a door and took out a soft quilt. She hesitated. The quilt was covered with flowered silk, and the lining was pure white silk. He is so dirty, she murmured in distress. Yes, he had better be washed. Sadao agreed. If you will fetch hot water, I will wash him. So Hana took some quilt, and she told her husband that this man is very dirty, and Sadao said, yes, he is very dirty, he needed some wash. If you can bring hot water, I will wash him. Hana said, I cannot bear for you to touch him. She said, we shall have to tell the servants he is here. I will tell Yumi now. She can leave the children for a few minutes and she can wash him. Hana said, we can't. I don't even allow you to do it. Don't touch him. Don't wash him. Yumi is there, our servant. Yumi will do it. Yumi is now looking after our children. I will go and tell her that she can leave the children for a while, and she should come and she should wash the man. Sadao considered a moment. Let it be so, he agreed. You tell Yumi and I will tell the others. Dr. Sadao said, okay, fine, yes, that's right. Go and tell Yumi to come, and I will tell the other servants to come, and they together will wash the man. But the utter pallor of the man's unconscious face moved him first to stoop and feel his pulse. Looking at the man, he looked so innocent and he looked so miserable. Sadao went close to him, and he tried to find his pulse, to check his pulse. It was faint, but it was there. He put his hand against the man's cold breast. The heart too was yet alive. Sadao could find pulse, although it was not strong, but it was there. And his palpitation was also, heartbeating beat was also there. So this means the man was alive. He will die unless he is operated on, Sadao said, considering the question is whether he will not die anyway. Sadao is telling that this man must be operated, otherwise he will die. And then immediately Sadao is saying, but the question is, will he not die? Die otherwise? If we don't operate him, ultimately, if we hand him over to the police, he will ultimately die. If we operate him, he will not die. But since we are going to finally hand him over to the police, his ultimate destiny is to die. That is what it is. This is what Sadao is saying. Hana cried out in fear, don't try to save him. What if he should live? Hana is saying, don't try to save him. See the confusion, the hesitation, the change in their mind. Hannah is telling her husband that you are thinking of operating him and then trying to save him. Don't try to save him. What if he should die? Sadao replied. He stood gazing down on the motionless man. This man must have extraordinary vitality, or he would have been dead by now. But then he was very young, perhaps not yet 25. Sadao is telling his wife, this man is very strong, physically very strong. Otherwise, after all these injuries, he must have died by this time. And his age, it seems to be 25 or so. You mean die from the operation? Hannah asked. Yes, Sadao said. Hannah considered this doubtfully, and when she did not answer, Sadao turned away. At any rate, something must be done with him, he said, and first he must be washed. He went quickly out of the room, and Hannah came behind him. She did not wish to be left alone with the white man. He was the first she had seen since she left America, and now he seemed to have nothing to do with those whom she had known there. Here he was her enemy, a menace, living or dead. So when Sadao said, okay, whether we operate upon him or not, whether he will live or die, that is something that will happen later. The first thing is to wash him. Okay, let me go and make some arrangements. When he is going out, Hannah did not want to remain alone with this man, because he was an American, he was a white man, and ever since she left America, she has not seen such a man, and she said she has no interest in such a man from America, because he was her enemy, and whether he is a living man or a dead man, it's a menace. Menace means a disturbance. She turned into the nursery and called Yumi. Yumi is one of their servants. Hannah called the servants Yumi. She turned to the nursery where the children were there. They were looked upon. They were taken care of by servants like Yumi. So Hannah called Yumi. She just made a sound, cried Yumi, she called. But the children heard her voice, and she had to go in for a moment and smile at them and play with the baby boy, now nearly 3 months old. When she called Yumi to come, before Yumi could hear her voice, the children heard their voice, and children wanted their mother. So Hannah immediately went there, and she played with the children for a while, and especially the youngest one, whose age is only 3 months. And over the baby's soft black hair, she motioned with her mouth, Yumi, come with me. So while she did not want this thing to be seen by their children, they are small indeed. So while caressing and loving her child, she just told Yumi that, Yumi, you please come with me. I will put the baby to bed. Yumi replied, he is ready. Yumi said, okay, I am putting the baby into bed. He is ready to go to sleep, and I will come. She went with Yumi into the bedroom next to the nursery and stood with the boy in her arms while Yumi spread the sleeping quilts on the floor and laid the baby between them. Then Hannah led the way quickly and softly to the kitchen. The 2 servants were frightened at what their master had just told them. The old gardener, who was also a house servant, pulled the few hairs on his upper lip. So now you will find that the information is shared with the servants. Now Yumi will come to know. Because Sadao has already told this to his servants, and those servants, they are alarmed, they are shocked. Why is this? Our master, Dr. Sadao, who is known for his patriotism, such a man he is harboring an enemy in our house. So you will next find that the servants are protesting. They are saying that no, we will not continue working at your home if you do such kind of things. If you allow an American man, if you give shelter to him, we will not continue working at your home. They will protest, and they will even leave their house. Still, what happens next? This interesting episode is still waiting for you, and we will see the next parts in the next video. Thank you very much.